Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. It's another beautiful Monday around the globe, everywhere except Iran, I guess. We are here with the Energy Realities podcast because y'all need a heavy dose of reality today. And you, just as you do every Monday morning, we're here to give it to you. With me today is Dr. Tammy Nemeth, who is in the UK, the homeland of Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband. How is everything in the UK today?
Well, I don't know because I'm in Canada today.
Oh, you're in Canada. I'm sorry. I apologize. Well, with Mark
That's
Carney then.
okay. Well, he's jetting around. He's not even in Canada. He's on holiday after his little jaunt. So who knows? I think he's done more flying in his first year than any other prime minister. It's rather shocking. But yeah, Calgary is cool, but we're supposed to have a Chinook coming through this week, so it's going to go from -10 to +18. So yay!
Yikes! Wow, that's a big change. Holy cow! We had a little freeze in Texas today, in North Texas. Our annual late season freeze hit my home. We got down to exactly 32 degrees right now as we speak. Stuart Turley is in Oklahoma.
Yep.
His secret bunker in eastern Oklahoma. How you doing, man?
You got to love a good bunker. It was really bad wind last night, and thank goodness I was in my bunker because the trees fell over, and now I get to get the backhoe out and hold them up while I get them cut up and everything. So it was some bad wind up here.
Yeah, we had. I was surprised. I woke up yesterday morning, and my Apple Watch says there's a severe weather alert. And I thought, oh my God, there's no rain in the forecast. What's going on? So I look at it, and the severe weather alert. And remember, I live about 12 miles due south of downtown Fort Worth. The severe weather alert is we're going to have winds of 20 to 25 miles an hour all day. And I'm thinking, well, my God, that means every day in Tarrant County, Texas is a severe weather day because the wind never stops blowing here, folks. I can personally attest to that. So I mean, we're just so silly about the weather now. It's just crazy to me.
But it creates that narrative.
It does create the narrative and sustain it. And I'm sure it's all climate change because it's never been windy in Fort Worth, Texas before. Anyway, it just drives me nuts. Irina Slav, unfortunately, our fourth co-host, cannot be with us today due to unforeseen circumstances. And we always miss Irina when she can't be here. Nobody misses me when I'm not here, but we do miss Irina when she's not here. And so we will try to muddle through this without her. Our topic for today is energy security is center stage, which, kind of goes without saying right now with this conflict in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz having been closed for 2 weeks, taking millions of barrels of crude off the global market, although we seem to be muddling through fairly well. But what brought this topic up to us last week was a statement by EU leader Ursula von der Leyen, in which she admitted that Europe's abandonment of nuclear energy in the wake of Fukushima in 2011, and Germany decided in the wake of that, while Ms. von der Leyen was in the government in Germany, that it was time to get rid of all the nuke plants, and other countries in the continent followed suit, except for France. And now she admits suddenly, now that Germany has imploded its final 3 nuke plants, that was a strategic error. Tammy Nemeth, tell us about Ms. von der Leyen's own role in making that choice for Germany.
Well, she was, I think she was like the Minister of Labor and Social something or other in the German government at the time. She was also deputy leader of the CDU, which was Angela Merkel's party, and she voted in support of it. And as the vice chair of the party, that means she's backing it up and everything else. And she never came out afterwards and said, maybe we shouldn't do that. She always told let's get rid of Atomkraft faster than ever. And then, when she became president of the EU, they started putting these conditions on new EU members that if you want to ascend to being part of the EU, for example, Bulgaria, Slovakia, and Lithuania, they had to shut down their nuclear power plants. Now, the reason given was that they were Russian made and therefore unreliable, even though there'd never been an issue with them. And it was a safety thing. Now, what Bulgaria is doing is that they're now building, I think, Westinghouse nuclear reactors to replace the Russian ones. So are the other countries doing that? Are they swapping out their Russian reactors for that are perfectly fine? And is the EU going to pay to replace them? I don't know. But in any event, she supported that policy to phase out, and I'm sure they thought, well, those countries won't be able to afford new ones, so it'll be great. We'll have no more nuclear in the European Union or something, except for France, because France is going to do what France does.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing, and that's her position on it. But kudos to her to admit that it was a strategic mistake after all those billions wasted. Maybe they'll do the same thing for the Green Deal.
So, well, and that's it, that you get right to the heart of it right there. Because, I mean, the point is, Ms. von and the leadership in Germany and most of the leadership in all across Europe has for years now told us that we don't need nukes because we can just build windmills and put in, condemn farmland to put in massive solar arrays and cut down trees to do it. And by calling that decision to abandon nuclear a strategic mistake, isn't she also saying that we've been lying to y'all for all these years about we're able to replace all this with wind and solar? I mean, isn't that the essence of what she just admitted? That it's all a lie?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which, who's been saying that for the last 4 years on this program? All of us. Every one of us. Anyway.
But David, I did see a story. I forget where it was. I was reading a whole bunch of stuff yesterday where there was someone who's normally not a supporter of energy reality, but said, oh my gosh, we're in an energy addition, not a transition. And I thought, oh, he's been listening to you, David.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that? Well, you and me and Stu and Irina all have been saying that. I mean, it's been obvious for quite some time now. Stu, what do you think about all that? I imagine you have strong opinions.
Whether anybody listens to it or not is a totally different subject, but your Substack, I want to give 2 shout outs this morning on Substacks. Blackman.substack.com. Your 5 top stories were actually priceless. And Ed Miliband, the Muppet, one biscuit short of being a Muppet, was absolute. That video you put of him, that man has the brain power of a potato bud. I don't understand how that man even breathes. It is unbelievable. I'm going to bring to the stage here my screen just for a real second here. Let me go to the first one. I want to give the Nemeth Report a shout out. This great authoress is out there. Canada's oil problems exposed, no SPR and pipeline bottlenecks. If we only had a phone line to her. What were you thinking, Tammy, when you wrote this?
Well, I think one of the big stories last week, and I'm sure you and David will talk about it, was the announcement finally that the nations had agreed from the IEA to release 400 million barrels into the world market to help stabilize supply and prices and whatnot. And Canada's like, yeah, we're gonna tell our companies to start releasing their stockpiles and start releasing their inventories. And people were like, what do you mean? Canada doesn't have a stockpile. It doesn't. The companies have their inventories for normal market operation, and there's a sort of unwritten agreement that they'll keep X amount of days in there, but there's nothing mandated. There's no separate federally controlled SPR. And part of the reason is that when Canada negotiated its exemption from the IEA 90-day supply storage element, the argument was we have enough pipeline capacity that we can boost production and fill that, which will act like a storage to some extent. That it'll be able to go there, whatever, when needed.
Yeah.
But since then, our pipeline capacity has dropped, and we don't have any kind of surge. I think there was a little bit that they were able to increase in the new TMX pipeline, but we don't have pipelines that go all the way to the East Coast. They stop in Quebec, and they won't go across the St. Lawrence for lots of different reasons or whatever. Eastern Canada gets a lot of oil imported from the United States and also from tankers abroad that supply those particular refineries that were built not to run on those foreign supplies and not Canadian ones. And so there's these vulnerabilities there, and the Canadian government never wants to pay for storage. And what's really funny is that in the 70s, when Carter was developing the SPR, Canada floated the idea, well, how about you just put some of it in our salt caverns on the East Coast? And Carter's guy said, no, even Canada, we wouldn't trust you to hold our strategic supply. And then we tried again with Reagan, and the Reagan guys were just like, are you kidding me? You brought in the National Energy Program. You said you're going to phase out oil. No, we're not going to do it. So anyway, that's where we can't help our allies when they need us. And that's been demonstrated since 2022.
So just to let everyone know, Elon Musk and X have decided to wage war with StreamYard, apparently. And if you've been watching on X, trying to watch this, you've been probably having an inconsistent stream on this podcast because we do use StreamYard. So you can also find us on our LinkedIn accounts and at YouTube, which is probably the safest way to view us. Unfortunately, I don't know, Elon Musk, we should all be grateful to him for buying Twitter and basically saving the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution by doing so. But since then, he's waged war with Substack, limiting ability of posts, links to Substack on X. And now he's doing the same thing with StreamYard for whatever reason. I guess he considers to be competition for his own streaming service, which is really bizarre behavior. But, with Elon Musk, you got to take the good with the bad. Anyway, so that's what's happening there if y'all have had an inconsistent signal. Tammy, I had exactly the same reaction when I saw that post by Mr. Carney, because I knew that Canada didn't really have a national petroleum reserve. My own reaction to the IEA plan, and I wonder how y'all reacted to it, particularly the U.S. participation in it, was that, first of all, we're supposed to contribute 43% of the total volume from our own strategic petroleum reserve. It seems like an outsized proportion of it. I don't know how the formula worked when they were determining those volumes, but as everyone, I think, watching this show knows, our own strategic petroleum reserve was dramatically reduced, the volumes in it, by Joe Biden so quickly that it damaged the caverns, some of the underground salt caverns in which the oil is stored. It damaged the integrity and their ability to hold the crude. And unfortunately, the Biden administration did nothing to try to repair any of that damage and left it all behind for the Trump Energy Department, led by Chris Wright, to deal with. And they've been trying to make those repairs. But in the meantime, it has slowed the ability of our country to refill our own reserve. And now we're going to dump another 172 million barrels. We're already down to 410. So that's going to take us down to 240 or so, which would be by far the lowest level in the strategic reserve since, I think, 1975, half a century. And that seems like a very questionable decision by the administration. And I'm not I'm generally kind of a cheerleader for this administration because I've agreed with all their policies. This one seemed to me a risky proposition. I wonder what Tammy and Stu think about it.
I think the war in Iran is going to be over fairly quickly, and I firmly believe. I believe so. I'm hopeful. I'm a little too optimistic sometimes, but realizing that there's boots on the ground to go to Karg Island and seal the strait. Once that's done, I firmly believe new government approved by President Trump will change for the better from what I've seen. I think that Secretary Bessent will flip over to the Venezuelan control mechanism so that the money will not be going to third-party people in the Gulf, so the Houthis and all the other people that are randomly blowing things up. I think it's going to be absolutely critical to get Iran back on track again. And I think that the problem with Iran is they've got the Persians in the center, and you've got all the other groups. It's going to be a tough one. I'm very hopeful. But what this did expose in a very broad sense is the world interdependence on oil, the different types of oil and everything else. This is also bringing up the overreach of the banking system in London. And we are now down to 7 refineries in California. 6 have stated they're about to close. The extra green reach on those refineries, even though the United States has said to put in a federal mandate, it's okay to start drilling again on Sable offshore, that oil means absolutely nothing. It would be a great thing to come into. But if all 7 refineries in California close, I started doing the math, and at Oklahoma State University, they don't teach us how to add. I had to go learn how to add on my own on this one. They import from China, Korea, South Korea, all around. You start going around India, Russia, Ecuador, and where they're bringing all these tankers in. Holy smokes, California is importing in diesel, gasoline, jet fuel. It's unbelievable how much we are not energy independent as the United States. Energy dominance is not happening because of California.
So what's the solution for the refineries then, David?
Well, I mean, so there's a lot of issues. Refineries. One thing we saw right initially, immediately, within 48 hours after this conflict beginning, diesel prices jumped up dramatically. And that has to do with something Stu mentioned up front, which is nobody's thinking about the various grades of crude oil, right? Because the market, what did it see immediately? The market immediately saw Iran's crude, which is an ideal crude for blending with other heavier grades of crude and lighter grades of crude as well. It's a mid-grade crude coming off the market. And what that meant was, if you don't have that Iranian crude available to blend with these other grades of crude, the first thing that you're not going to be able to crack out of the stream is the lighter refined products that come out of the stream, and diesel's right up there at the top. I don't want to try to explain. Well, actually, just simply explained, refining of crude oil and breaking all the various products out of it is just a matter of gradually heating up the crude oil. And as you heat it up, the lighter products, diesel and jet fuel, come off the top, and you heat it up more, and then the mid-weight products come off, and then at the bottom you get your tar, basically your asphalt for paving roads. And so without that grade of crude, mid-grade crude to blend with all this other stuff, you end up losing certain elements out of the crude stream. So that was one thing that happened. And now I've talked for so long, I've forgotten what the question was. But Stu, you go ahead and take it.
What's the solution with the refineries? So we have
Well,
that. Should the government intervene? Should the Department of War take over the California refineries?
oh,
Force them
absolutely. Yes,
to stay
absolutely.
open?
Absolutely. And I'm someone who has always been very reluctant for the federal government to intervene with state affairs where energy is concerned. But this is a national security issue now in California. And as Stu has explained many times, a big piece of it is because so much of our jet fuel in the United States has traditionally come from those California refineries. And we have all these military installations in California that need that jet fuel. And so as Newsom is shutting down these refineries, he's cutting off the Pentagon's access to jet fuel systematically, which, you know, if you like me believe Newsom is essentially an agent for the Chinese government, makes perfect sense. Okay. So I know that's kind of an inflammatory statement, but folks, just look at the guy's background. It's not that hard to see what he's doing. And so, yeah, that's my conspiracy theory for the day. But yes, I think the federal government has to jump in and just take over the energy sector in California for the good of the country. For the other refiners, I mean, the only solution is getting the strait back open and getting all that oil back onto the market. U.S. refineries, you know, along the Gulf Coast, we don't really import any Mideast crude to our refineries along the Gulf Coast, and that's really the biggest set of our refiners. We get most of our heavy oil from Canada, and now some more coming in from Venezuela, and hopefully Trump doesn't develop such an adversarial relationship with Mark Carney that will you know, that he might cut off our heavy crude coming from the oil sands. But we got to hope and pray it doesn't come to that, or we're really going to be screwed. But, you know, I mean, as Stu says, I think this conflict, I believe too, that it's going to be over fairly quickly, but that agreement to participate in the IEA program indicated to me longer term planning than just a few weeks. So I was all over the place there, but that's my answer.
Let me go ahead and bring to the stage here. Let's see here. And David, when we took a look at this,
can you play that?
Was yeah, that was amazing. Let me turn the sound off. Nuclear power generation for Germany. Wow.
Watch the top line drop here in a minute. This is an illustration of Germany abandoning its nuclear industry, and China, the lower line at first, building its own. And it just seems to me this is a clear illustration of the surrender of Germany's industrial economy and the transfer of its carbon emissions to China.
Yeah. Wow.
Watch. I mean, this is one of the best moving charts I've ever seen.
Just got to notice while that's playing, LinkedIn is also having a StreamYard issue. I may be shopping for other products to do streaming services for if StreamYard can't keep LinkedIn going either.
Yeah, I mean, sorry about this, everyone.
That just came in on your notice there on LinkedIn. Right. This guy is absolutely hilarious. But let's go to marine traffic for just a second. The Saudi Arabia path, this was a 40-year pipeline over to the Nio. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but there's two terminals here. Yeah. Each one has about 4 million barrels per day. And look at them around here like guppies. I mean, this is just
2 weeks ago, none of those tankers were there, only a few.
Oh, yeah. And then look at the stream. Look at this stream. Woo! This is just nuts. Now, we had this. Oops. Where is I had it just a second ago. I had a video clip of a tanker. We've had several tankers go through this morning. I noticed that there were more this morning that had gone through.
Yeah.
So
With their
tankers
transponders on, which
with
is
their
first.
yes, with their transponders on. So there is, I believe this may have been one. Yep. The Nora. I saw this one right up here earlier. So this one is en route and under power, and I saw it here earlier this morning. So they are rolling and they are going through the strait. But when we sit back and take a look at this, when Secretary Bessent drops, let's go look at Karg Island. When Secretary Bessent drops the Venezuelan control mechanism right here on Karg Island, and the United States starts brokering oil for Iran, you will see an entirely new world, because it's going to be the same control mechanisms, and all of the rest of the other Gulf states are going to be very happy, because right now the Houthis control this right over here, and they will be defunded to the tune of $2 billion a year is what that island was funding for the Houthis right here. So all of a sudden, oil tankers are going to be freed up around the world.
Well, and that's the thing, the Houthis made a lot of noise the first 72 hours of this conflict about, attacking tanker traffic, and they haven't fired a shot as far as I've seen. Nope. So I don't know if that's just the cutting off of funds from Iran or exactly what has driven that. But, if the Houthis decide to start lobbing missiles at those tankers, then we're going to have a problem in the Red Sea too.
Yeah.
Because it takes quite some time for a single tanker to get through the Suez Canal into the Med. All that traffic can't go through the Suez Canal. Anyway, sorry, Tammy, I interrupted you.
That's okay. I love all the details you guys are providing, especially the tanker traffic and, what could possibly happen with the Houthis. Are they mining things and then suddenly ships will be triggered or something? Who knows? But I think we have to kind of step back a little bit and take a broader perspective, because it's like energy security was forgotten until Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Then everybody was like, oh, energy security for Europe, we got to pay attention. And nothing happened. And then this happened. And Mark Carney and others go around saying that the world is unstable, the leadership is unstable, we don't know what's going to happen, everything's kind of unreliable, and there's lots of instability. So then that implies crises might happen more often, or there could be crisis happening when you least expect it, like now. And yet, what has been the energy policies of all the Western countries? There's the climate alarm type of people have this narrative now. See, we should have more wind and solar.
Right.
Oil's unreliable. We're reliant on the Middle East, which is a powder keg, and we need to stop. And I'm all for diversification when it's strategic and works. And you can't run a jet on solar power. I mean, jets aren't electric. Tanks aren't electric. So if you have a military, it still needs hydrocarbons in order to operate at a strategic and tactical level. So all of this sort of energy security is vital to national security. This is something the Western world, except for maybe America, had forgotten.
That's true, and it's a shame, because we saw, even after von der Leyen made that statement last week, the very next day, Friedrich Merz, who is the Chancellor of Germany, made a speech in which he said, yes, it was a mistake to abandon our nuclear industry, but we can't go back now.
Yeah, it's too late.
We can't recover that. And I'm thinking, wait, why? Why can't you
They
build
could.
new nuclear plants? What's preventing that?
They
And
could
it
turn.
can only be ideology. Anyway,
It's
sorry.
ideology, David, because
Yeah.
they could go back and turn those back on. It's
No,
not
they've
too late.
imploded them. They've imploded the
Yeah,
hardware.
they've
They blew them
imploded
up
them. They've made, yeah,
to make sure they can't turn them on.
yeah.
Well, build the new cooling towers again. That would be cheaper than putting in a whole new reactor base. You can start there. Look, I've done a lot of things, and calculating out putting in a cooling tower is cheaper than the whole base for the thing there.
Well, but
Cooling
I thought
towers are
they
not
had disabled the generating equipment as well.
I don't know. But when you sit back and take a
The
look at it, it's actually moronic when you sit back and take a look at it.
Well, it is. It's crazy, but it's ideology, and that's it's a religion. Let's be honest. This is a religion that's not gonna surrender voluntarily. It's just not. It's like trying to tell the Vatican to stop practicing Catholicism. It's exactly the same thing, and these people aren't going to do that. So the people in Western societies are either going to rise up and force it to end, or you're just going to end up vassal states.
Speaking of
And America's not immune to that either.
No, speaking of rising up, I love what's going on in Hungary. It seems like Orban has really got people fired up, and he seems to be a leader for his people. Hats off to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard mixed reports about what's happening during this election campaign. The
Yeah.
EU is funding a lot of money behind his opponents, and there's a lot of smear things happening, and the foundations, our favorite ones, are operating there. So
I think you just hit a key point. The EU does not like him because he stands up against them, and they're funding opposition bull hockey.
yeah, just like they did in Romania and what they did in Bulgaria and Slovakia.
I want to go back to something that got lost in all of our excitement a little bit ago about X, and now LinkedIn also messing with us. The best place to watch this show, folks, is going to be YouTube. Like it or not, going to need to go to Stu Turley's YouTube or my YouTube or Tammy's YouTube to watch this show going forward until we can find a different tool.
Or our Substacks.
Yeah, or our Substacks. We'll be posting this to all of our Substacks later today or early tomorrow, depending on how slow I am getting to it. Bob Quigley, while we were dealing with all that, and I missed it until now, says per Exxon, we're extracting 100 million barrels daily, depleting reserves 15 annually, which is 2 times faster than IEA predictions. And what he's referring to is we haven't invested enough. We're $1 trillion short in investing in finding new reserves, thanks to all the ESG fever swamp thinking that caused financial institutions to withhold funds from oil companies to find new reserves since the Paris Accord was signed in 2016. And we are short, and we're going to have a real supply crisis in about 5 years, maybe sooner than that, on oil markets. Right now, everything seems to be hunky-dory once we get the Strait open. Before this all started, we were probably 2 million barrels a day oversupplied on the crude market. So everything seemed great and beautiful, and prices were going down. But in a few years, that situation is almost certainly going to reverse itself. And only the United States appears to be intent on, pouring billions and billions of additional dollars into the oil and gas business. Middle East does too, but I'm talking about OECD countries. None of the other OECD countries seem to be at all concerned about this, and I think it's something everybody should be extremely concerned about. Exxon's a lot smarter than the IEA about oil markets.
90% of the world's oil and gas is out of depleting oil fields. The number that I've seen that is not talked about much, David, is $4 trillion is needed in order to put back into it. So I'm a perma bull on oil prices. It's a matter of when, as far as when the price goes up. I applaud the Saudi leadership and Saudi Aramco leadership. They just put out last week that oil demand will be increasing again. So it is a very big issues. And there are lots of oil. It's not that there's not oil out there. It's where is it and where can it be affordably extracted? I think Francis Moore has an outstanding point.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a huge Falkland field ripe for development. That's true. The question is, who's going to develop it? Argentina may have to steal the Falklands back in order for that to be. And apparently, they're thinking about it.
Well, because the UK wouldn't support
Brits
it.
Can't get a ship out of their ports. They may consider trying to do that soon. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be developed as long as the UK and Ed Miliband are in control of it. Now, the government in the UK could change, and that could change as well.
Yeah, but it's at least another 2 or 3 years before there's another election.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of. Yay,
Hi,
Irina.
Whoop, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I just wasn't speaking.
Oh, okay. Well, we are having a lively discussion here. We're all over the place because I'm a terrible moderator, but
I'm sorry, it was my turn. Not that I'm a better moderator or any good
we're going to
moderator.
stick you with it next week then.
Yeah.
But we've covered a lot. What I guess since you have just I'm sorry, Tammy, we interrupted you. You finished.
No,
first.
it's okay. I was just going to say, because we were talking about, David was talking about we're lacking investment to keep the oil from running out, basically, because the reserves are being used up, but they're not. The new finds aren't really replenishing anything. And why is that? And there's been this discouragement of investment in oil and gas development, especially by Western investors, since the Paris Agreement. And if you look at what the Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance released, I think it was last week or the week before, they specifically say, buy into companies and then don't give them investment money to develop new fields. Like no more new stuff, help them phase out. And so this is the mentality, unfortunately, in a lot of the investment people, the institutional investors and whatnot of the Western countries, where they don't want to have more resources. They don't want to have more reserves. They want to just phase out what we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my little rant.
Did you mention the speech that the UN Stop Climate Guy was going to deliver today to European officials?
We haven't. Why don't you talk about that? Yeah,
yes,
I actually mentioned
lovely.
that on Substack.
It's lovely. There was a Reuters report in the morning talking about his prepared remarks. And guess what those remarks were, people? Those remarks were to berate the European Union for being too reliant on oil and gas. He was going to use the issue of energy security as motivation for even more wind and solar, because wind and solar, sunlight does not depend on some narrow, vulnerable strait.
Yeah.
Which we knew was going to happen.
Be cloudy, you just got to have no clouds. That's a different thing.
He doesn't care about that. But I was wondering when I read these remarks, and I wrote about it in my Substack for today, what amount of wind and solar will be enough, according to these people, to make the European Union, which is not a country, energy independent and energy secure? And I don't think they have the answer. They just know one song, and that's more wind, more solar, oil and gas bad. Yeah. They have built so much over the past 10 years, especially. Why is it not enough?
Well, it's never going to be enough.
Europe is as reliant as it was before on oil and gas. How did this happen? It's just rhetorical questions. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and we did talk up top. I mean, we hadn't talked about that though. Thank you for bringing that up. But up top, we mentioned Ursula von der Leyen's statement last week that
About nuclear.
abandoning nuclear was a strategic error. And yet she's the one who for the last 10 years has been telling us all, well, we don't need nukes because we can just replace them with wind and solar. And doesn't that statement she made last week, isn't what she's really saying is, well, we've just been lying to y'all all this time about that. It's not true. Nothing we've told you is true.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to interpret it, right? I don't think.
And then why did Merz come out and say that the decision to shut down nuclear is irreversible? Why is it irreversible?
Well, we raised that question too, and none of us
their-
had an answer.
Yeah, because imagine the huge embarrassment after destroying your nuclear power plants, you have
Right.
to build new ones from scratch. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a new viewer here, new here. WTF do you people talk about? Figure it out. Okay. And Francis Moore, I have faith in horizontal drilling to extract more oil and gas from oil and gas field. Yes, I do too, actually. And in fact, so 7 years ago in the Marcellus Shale, we were drilling wells. Tim Stewart at USOGA talked about this last week in a podcast Stu and I did with him. 6 or 7 years ago in the Marcellus Shale gas field, horizontal well that would go maybe 2,000 feet horizontal would have 3 or 4 frac stages. Now we are drilling wells in which the horizontal is 2 to 3 miles long and has as much as 300 to 400 frac stages. Okay. And that's happening with the industry all over the country in these shale plays. And it's why the United States has continued to increase overall production month after month, year after year, despite a falling rig count, because we're getting more out of every well we drill, even though these are supposedly not the prime drill sites anymore that we're drilling. We still get more oil out of them than the supposedly prime sites 10 years ago. And that's, some people, even really smart people in the industry, seem to think, well, technology is not going to continue to improve. And that just defies the whole history of the whole damn industry for 170 years. Technology always continues to improve. Why would anyone think that AI technology, as it is applied to oil and gas, isn't going to enable that to continue? I agree. I believe we're going to continue to increase production out of every shale play in the United States for I don't know how much longer. Some of these formations are almost inexhaustible of the actual resource that's in them. So I just I have a lot of faith in this industry to be able to access more and more production in these wells. But the point I'm trying to get to is the government has to allow them to do that. And that's not happening in most Western countries anymore. So that's really going to be the question is public policy going to evolve back to reality again? And I don't know. I don't know the answer. What do y'all think?
That's a great point about innovation.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think about that frequently enough. I get emotionally caught up in an issue and fail to think about that.
Well, let me add something from the Canadian perspective. So the really big oil field in 1947 that set Alberta up as being this huge energy producer, the Leduc Formation from the Devonian, they had to drill down really deep, and they got this amazing field. Well, it kind of got depleted, or it didn't produce so well, and they closed it off in the 70s. And about 5 or 6 years ago, a group came in and have basically resurrected the field using new technology. And it's really quite fascinating where there's these older fields that they thought, okay, well, this isn't economically viable to do, but there's new technologies now where now they can go back in and extract more oil from those fields because they're not fully depleted. When they first are produced, it's a smaller percentage than we think.
Yeah, I think that's unarguable.
Do you think there will be
Chestnut.
reversal in these investment plans you were talking about earlier, Tammy? Based
I
on
don't
what
know.
we're seeing right now?
I don't know. The webinars I've sat in on with these people talking, they're all like, well, we're just being low key. We're still moving forward in this direction. We're just not being really shouting about it like, Larry Fink used to. It's still being done under the
Yeah.
radar, basically. Yeah. So that's
I think what we'll need to watch are the monetary systems. And when you take a look at the International Monetary Fund and you take a look at the UN, I think the UN has the potential of being replaced by the Board of Peace. When you take a look at what the International Monetary Fund has done to the emerging markets like Africa, which just breaks my heart that they will say, we'll only loan you money if you're going to put in solar farms, or we'll only loan you money if it's going to be renewable this. Why don't we loan them money and get them to build up their natural resources? And take South Africa as an example. They used to be extra cheap energy using coal. Take a look at, one of the great African leaders right now is NJ Anook, and he's with the African Energy Chamber, and he's actually trying to do what's right for Africa and not tie financial ties to renewable, but let's tie it to the cheapest energy we can produce with the least impact on the environment. Let's define the least impact on the environment and get after it. And until we all sit back and realize that's the real discussion, people are going to be throwing bull hockey around.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
Well, China was going in and offering these countries reliable energy funding and building it for them and stuff. So
Wait, whoa. China was going in and delivering reliable energy to these no, let me explain what China was doing. China was taking
Belt and Road she's talking about.
China was taking oil from Venezuela and Iran, and they're buying it at $20 below what the price is. Then they turn around and they give the money back, but they inflate the goods and services from China. So they're actually making retail dollars on what they sell back to those countries. It's robbery. Anybody that doesn't understand what's going on with China, the Belt and Road, and robbery of these countries is actually not paying attention. Sorry.
So we've had a lively debate in the comments section about, yes, capital, but also engineering and innovation. Jeff Chestnut kicked it off with this: AI is not the be all, end all, give all, and do all. Totally agree with that. And then he said, innovation will come from engineering effort as it has in the past. And I totally agree with that. But don't you think that AI is going to be deployed by the engineers to help them make them more efficient in what they do, just as writers have done, podcasters are doing, lawyers are doing it. I mean, AI is, if used properly, can be a tool to enhance everyone's efforts. I think not everyone, but it's not going to help. It's not going to help the roughnecks, but I do think it can improve efficiencies in engineering just as it does in other applications in the oil industry. Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
Irina was shaking her head. So
no, I was shaking my head because I'm not using AI for my writing. I'm not going to.
Oh yeah,
the AI.
It's a fantastic way to speed up searches, web searches, to find supporting information for what you're writing. That's, to me, is the best advantage.
Yeah, but I'm slow to embrace change, so I still prefer Google to return results with websites from which I can take the information. But the AI summary are useful. Yeah.
Well, Grok will return you the links too if you prompt it to.
That's the key.
You got to prompt it. Yeah. But
I have to
anyway, I just think that engineers are going to find ways to use AI that's going to enable them to be even better at what they do than they already are, which is pretty extraordinary without it.
Yeah.
Well, since Irina missed so much of the of the discussion on energy security, Irina, what do you think is the future for the European Union in energy security? Are they gonna, listen to what the UN guy says and yeah, let's triple down on wind solar batteries, or are they gonna
Probably.
see some sense and
But they will probably triple down as a knee-jerk reaction because, as I've said before repeatedly, they're really scared of admitting they were wrong. They have spent so many billions of our money on something that doesn't work, and just coming out and admit, you know what, we shouldn't have done it. This is out of the question because they'll be voted out or kicked out immediately.
Yeah.
But I think that right now we are having to face facts that the continent, like all other continents, is still very much dependent on hydrocarbons. The leaders, the political leaders, will definitely try to ignore this, to pretend it's not happening, and push for more wind and solar. But as wind and solar get more expensive because of the oil crisis and the gas crisis and the everything crisis, how are they going to keep pushing it? How are they going to justify even more money being spent on that when they have been promising for years that it will bring cheaper energy? It will bring down electricity bills. This is not going to happen. It wasn't going to happen even before the crisis, but now it's just going to get a lot more expensive. I have no idea what's happening in their heads, but if there is an ounce of rationality, of reason somewhere in the upper echelons of power in the European Union, they better start, using it.
Yeah. I wonder if elections even matter anymore, though, because of what happened in the UK. We love to make fun of Ed Miliband because he's so easy to make fun of and such a rich target. But the truth is, the Tories were doing exactly the same thing, just a little slower. They're like country club Republicans in the United States. They have exactly the same philosophy as the liberals. They just were trying to do it a little slower to pretend to be conservative. Even if you have an election where there's a big change in the government, is anything real going to change, Tammy? That's my question.
For our podcast listeners,
well, what did Liz Truss say when you?
I just kicked off Ed Miliband. Why would Ed Miliband, who is one step away from being a Muppet, go on a set that looks like a cartoon character? You just can't buy that kind of entertainment. Anyway, I just had to show that to our podcast listeners. So sorry.
That's pretty funny. Well, what did Liz Truss say to you guys? I mean, that was great that you had an opportunity to speak to the shortest lived prime minister in the UK.
I was pleasantly surprised. I was very surprised by her. I've got her book now. I'm going to be reading it, and I actually applaud her. She confirmed some of my conspiracy theories that are not conspiracy theories. And it is one thing when you can sit back and sit here and be a podcast host, but when you talk to a former prime minister, she actually is the real deal. If there is a resurgence, I gave Catherine Porter a shout out and said, boy, she needs to be in your energy cabinet because she can run circles around Ed Miliband. So, I applaud Liz for getting her book out and getting her show out there. So it was a fun podcast.
But wasn't, and she was the shortest lived prime minister. But wasn't the main reason for that was that she was trying to reverse all this craziness on climate change? I mean, it
The
wasn't that
deep state
one of
is
the main
very,
reasons why she was forced out?
the deep state is very deep in the
Yeah,
UK.
very deep and wide
It is.
ranging.
It is very deep, and it's even deeper than it is deep in the United States, and it's really sad.
Yeah.
Well, somebody
entrenched.
earlier made the point, and it's correct, that LinkedIn sucks, and it's not as bad as Facebook, but it does suck. But one of the reasons why LinkedIn sucks and censors people is because its owner is heavily tied in with the deep state in China. So, I mean, just to illustrate how wide-reaching and deep it is, that's one of the main reasons why it's such a struggle with LinkedIn for me and anyone else who doesn't toe the climate change line. If I was a climate change advocate, I've got a huge following on LinkedIn, but I post something and nobody sees it, right? If I was a climate change advocate, pretty much every post I put up there would go near viral because of the bias in the algorithm at LinkedIn. But I'll put a post up, and every once in a while they forget to censor me and something goes off pretty well. But usually, it's just a few hundred to a few thousand views. Well, I've got 40 or 50,000 people following me. Okay. It's so, but nobody's seeing my posts because of the owner of LinkedIn's ties to the deep state. And that's just the truth. It's the way it is. It's why I gave up on Facebook too. Same thing at Facebook.
Who is the owner of LinkedIn? Why do I remember Microsoft?
Reid Hoffman.
No, I thought he sold it to Microsoft.
He sold it to Microsoft.
Well, no. He's still a big owner, big shareholder in it. And Microsoft is exactly the same thing. Okay. And Hoffman's not only deep state, he was a longtime pal of who? Jeffrey Epstein. So let's just get it all out there since they're censoring me completely today. So
wow.
Anyway.
Yeah, Microsoft bought it in 2016, but it operates as an independent entity within the Microsoft.
And who's on the board?
Oh, good question. The current CEO is Ryan Roslansky.
Yeah. But Hoffman's on the board.
Yeah.
And for a long time remained chairman of the board. I don't know if he still is.
Yeah, I don't know.
The sad part about censorship is my website is now getting 2 million people a month on the site, Energy Newsbeat.
Right.
That's the only way that I've been able to survive. And the censorship that's out there just drives me nuts.
Yeah. But it just is what it is. It's a little less pervasive on X than it is anywhere else. But
yeah.
Yeah, depends on the day.
Yeah.
But we will need will need to ask for our folks because of quality production. I've noticed a huge change in production quality when we do a production and then we put it out post-production. I love having the comments. I love the interaction from the people, but we need to sit back and really say, with the production problems, do we go to a recorded event and then try to figure out a way to do this? Because this is a real problem that is coming in from X and LinkedIn, and just say to everybody, we're going to be only on YouTube Live. I just need to ask, just from a production standpoint, and then post it out on LinkedIn, post afterwards or X afterwards. I'm really not wanting to go to X anymore, live anymore. I'm posting my stuff out after I do a production, if that makes sense. It seems like the numbers are going up dramatically when I do it that way.
Well, that may be the only way to do it in the future. Just have everybody find us on YouTube and watch it there.
And then we'll post it out on our Substacks.
Yeah. But then sooner or later, YouTube's probably going to do the same thing to us. Anyway. It's amazing they haven't already, quite honestly. I don't understand it, really.
Don't tell them. Don't
draw
their attention.
We're over time here. Sorry. I was so discombobulated today. But we did have a wide ranging, fun and adventurous discussion. And thank you to everyone who managed to join us for joining us. Had a lot of good comments and questions, and we will see everyone next week. That's all for today, right?
Yep. Have a great
All
week. Bye-bye.
Bye.